We're looking at something pretty wild, how a totally ordinary, everyday lockdown experience ended up silently transforming into a psychological trap for millions of people. It's a fascinating look into the human mind and honestly how easily our natural hardwired desire for safety can just completely backfire on us.
Now, you might actually remember this feeling. As restrictions finally lifted and the world slowly started to reopen, a lot of people noticed something kind of strange happening to their minds. It wasn't some massive, immediate panic, right? It was more like this slow, creeping hesitation.
To really unpack this, our source material zeroes in on an incredibly relatable example. We're not talking about a soldier or some famous celebrity here. This is the story of an ordinary 29-year-old guy named Freddie. His mind, quietly, completely changed his life without him even realizing it was happening. I mean, he had a normal apartment, a normal job, totally normal routines.
All right, Section 1, the comfort of lockdown, a slower life. Let's trace how this whole thing builds from a place of, well, completely understandable relief.
When the lockdown first hit, Freddie's new routine felt absolutely amazing. Think about it. No more stressful commute, no more awkward small talk at the office water cooler, just none of that general pressure of constantly being on. He started thinking, hey, this slower life is exactly what I needed. Waking up a bit later, binging videos a little longer, ordering takeout, working quietly in sweatpants. Honestly, life just felt better.
But then we hit Section 2, the avoidance reward, the psychology of canceling. Because as the months rolled by and restrictions literally disappeared, his friends started inviting him out again. And this right here is where a pretty dark psychological mechanism started taking root.
Here's the crazy part. When Freddie would get a text to hang out and he replied, not today, guys, he didn't actually feel happiness. What he felt was an immediate, massive rush of relief. It was like his brain was chemically patting him on the back, saying, yup, good choice, man, you stayed safe. No stress, no awkward social moments, just instant comfort.
So what's going on here? Well, it's rooted in this concept called avoidance learning. So your brain doesn't just learn from your wins, it learns from what you actively avoid. Neurologically speaking, every single time you dodge a tiny bit of discomfort, your brain rewards you with this sweet hit of dopamine-driven relief. It files that data away. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, comfort stops being about resting and recovering, and it morphs into a really strict form of self-protection.
Which brings us to Section 3, the invisible prison, the shrinking world. Let's see how this avoidance learning actually played out in the real world when Freddie just needed to go do something super basic, like buy groceries from a store literally 5 minutes away. So he gets stressed, right? But the second he opened his apartment door, his chest just suddenly tightened up. His thoughts immediately started racing as his brain fired off its very first warning signal.
He's just standing there, completely paralyzed, staring out the open door as his mind throws another massive, catastrophic what-if right at him. The panic was just completely spiraling out of proportion to the actual task of getting groceries.
Totally overwhelmed by all these escalating fears, he just gave in to that avoidance loop. He quietly closed the door and just ordered delivery on his phone instead. Boom. The discomfort was avoided and his brain got its precious little reward. Now, he actually laughed at himself later that night, kind of just brushing the whole thing off, but deep down, he knew something was off. Things just didn't feel normal anymore. The walls of his perfectly comfortable little zone were literally closing in on him. Fast forward a few months, and the harsh reality of his situation really crystallized. He wasn't clinically depressed, but his entire world had just shrunk. It was confined entirely to his bedroom, his computer screens, and his super rigid routines. One afternoon, just watching people live their lives outside his window, it hit him. He was trapped in a cage. And the craziest part? Every single door was completely unlocked.
All right, Section 4, the awakening, looking in the mirror. So how in the world do you break out of a prison you've built for yourself? Well, the turning point for Freddie came completely by chance one evening when an old photo popped up on his phone. It was him from a few years back, smiling, traveling, just living this big, vibrant life. He had to stop and ask himself, wait, when did I stop being that guy? Staring at that old photo forced him into a really uncomfortable realization. He wasn't protecting his peace like he kept telling himself. He was literally just protecting himself from feeling uncomfortable. And those two things, they are absolutely not the same. Protecting your peace is healthy, sure, but chronic avoidance just shrinks your entire existence.
That brings us to our final section, Section 5,
One uncomfortable step, breaking the loop. The very next morning, he knew he had to do something, anything. But he didn't try to pull off some massive overnight life transformation or hype himself up with a grand motivational speech. Instead, he did something incredibly small and beautifully ordinary. He just opened his door, walked downstairs, bought a single bottle of water at the corner store, and came back home. That's it. It wasn't a marathon. It was just a few minutes of real-world exposure.
But guys, that tiny little action meant absolutely everything, because it taught his brain a totally new lesson. He went outside, and nothing bad happened. The world wasn't actually out to get him. He proved to his own mind, in real time, that he wasn't actually stuck.
And this right here is what I really want you to take away from this explainer today. The absolute scariest part of this psychological trap is that it feels so perfectly reasonable. Your mind doesn't always trap you with paralyzing fear. Sometimes it traps you with comfort. It dresses up as self-care, but make no mistake, it is a trap.
Because the life you actually want, it might literally be waiting right outside your front door. And breaking out doesn't require immense, superhuman courage. It really just requires a single, slightly uncomfortable step to start rewiring your brain.
So if Freddie's story hit a little close to home for you today, just know you are definitely not alone in this. It takes a massive amount of self-awareness to recognize when our totally natural need for safety has gone just a bit too far. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, pretty heavy question to chew on today. Has comfort quietly become your prison?